we are going to be heading over to a new mission. Apparently we're going to have to how can I say this, acquire or steal one nuclear, not nuclear, but a missile launcher by the name of Honeybee. I'm assuming that this weapon has nuclear capabilities because there are many rocket propelled grenade launchers and missile launchers that we could develop at Mother Base, so this has to be something very special or at least extremely powerful. So that will be the mission briefing of today. That will get soon enough. I was just in the field here developing some things. I was shocked, not shocked, but happy to find out that I will have the possibility to craft, or should I say develop the stealth camo suit from previous Metal Gear games. I knew it was in the game, I just didn't know I could develop it right now. Sadly I never got to use it. But it's definitely something we'll employ later on for fun. Try speed through things. I'm gonna try take this as fast as possible. This particular episode there'll be a lot of fast forwarding in the beginning and a lot of cut editing just in this coming section in the first few minutes. The reason being is when you go into free roam and you select a mission, you would think that if you dropped in the mission area you can just head over to the mission location, but that's not actually the case. Instead, if you drop in the mission area, you'll have to go to a recon point in which the mission will begin. As you can see right now, there's a specific spot the mission begins, and they'll not let you deviate from that. Even if you're in the base and you start the mission, it will tell you to go back and then begin again, which is very stupid if you ask me.
Military's new weapon codenamed Honeybee. The CIA put it in the hands of the Hamid group of Mujahideen, but the Hamid fighters were wiped out. The Honeybee must still be hidden at their base, the fort at Desmasi Laman. Unfortunately, the Soviets are looking for the weapon as well. You have to get to it before they do, and bring it back here. There's a photo of the target on your iDroid. One more thing. Apparently one of the Hamid fighters survived. He's missing. But if you can find him, he might lead us to the target. Good luck, boss.
Interesting note here before we get into today's discussion. Miller tells us that the CIA put, or should I say gave, this Honeybee technology, this Honeybee launcher, to the the what? You know, I could pronounce this word, but for some reason I seem to have forgot it. Anyway, to the local soldiers in the Afghan area, so as to what exactly? You would think that, not you would think, it's a theory that has been implemented in real life, multiple in our everyday society. We just probably don't think much of it because it's usually something that's done in secrecy. And you would say that the movie Inception was based off such theories, even though I don't know, I didn't find Inception to be very blockbuster or something worth remembering, but it's the best way I can describe this particular theory, as I have actually forgotten the name.
A Soviet relay base. Think there's something in there that could lead us to the Honeybee?
Usually, for example, let me just give you a breakdown of what I mean. Let's just say one country wants to usurp rule over another country. For example, country A wants to control country B. But in this day and age, you can't just wage war against a country. It's not like back in the day. You have to go through political channels. And if you just decide to invade, or you decide to take control of another country without manipulating the system, and without convincing people that by you doing so you are helping the people of that country, in other words, if you can do so without making yourself look like the good guy, chances are people paint you as the bad guy and everyone will fight against you pretty much. So it's not like back in the day, for example, when one village wanted to control another, all they just had to do was send their military there, and if their military was stronger, they win. It's either you die or you accept their rulership. But in this current day and age, things don't work that way. It seems like the range of Noctisinin is really strong, by the way. I'm spotting out people 200 meters off. But as I was saying, you can't just go in this day and age and invade another country without having the whole world coming down upon you, because people just, war and death is nothing nice. So what you can do instead, if country A wants to take control of country B, and let's just say country B has a local dispute or they have disagreements, country C and country B have disagreements, you can create or establish a catalyst within country B and C so as to start a war between country B and C. Since you want country B, you can then further undercover sponsor country C to defeat country B for you without making you look like the bad guy. Let me try to think of something that has happened in real life. This may be a touchy subject for some, and how can I say it? Let's just say it's not something anyone would like to talk about. But if we look at some historical events that have occurred over the past couple of years, for anyone particularly familiar with African politics, there was once a president of Libya, not many years ago actually, by the name of Maommar Kadafi. Kadafi wanted, fair and fine, his rule was said to be very dictatorial. He was a dictator, had been there for many years, and so people painted him over as the bad guy, as he did not want to give away his power, which is all fair and fine. If people want democracy, you can't be president forever. There has to come a time for you to step down, but he didn't. Now, he implemented certain policies and he did certain bad things, that I totally agree with, but he did, on the other hand, try implement certain things that were not accepted by the Western world. For example, he was trying to
a survivor, one of the Hamid. Is he mute? He knows about it. This is our chance.
Okay, as I was saying, he was trying to organize with different African leaders to try create Africa, to not create Africa, but to make Africa into one state, sort of how the United States is like, to try and make Africa as a continent one country with one big rulership, one currency, with trade rules such that everyone across the world would have to whoever has to trade with Africa, all trades would benefit Africa, not currently as how most foreign investors come into Africa to invest. Fair and fine, they may develop certain things, but most of the profit made from such investments usually goes back overseas. So Africa doesn't benefit from its own resources, the rest of the world does. So Africa's been put in quite a tight spot in that regard. So Gaddafi wasn't happy with all of this. He was against the fact that the Western world would come into Africa to take all these minerals, resources, and invest in their own ideals, and then leave with the profit without Africa benefiting in any way. So he was totally against it, and he closed certain channels in terms of trades and ties with the Western world, and most of the Western world, NATO included, was not happy about this. He was doing certain things that would mean that Africa would have a stronghold in certain political discussions, especially within the UN and within trade routes. People would have a tough time trading and bargaining with Africa because Africa would become self-efficient. Usually people would, it's most beneficial for Africa to be the whipping boy, so that it's easier for people to just come and take what they want and leave the country poor. That's how the world works, hence why Africa was a colony, and well, not Africa as a continent, but all the different countries in Africa were colonies to other people because it benefited them to enslave the Africans and take everything they had. That was just the way the world was. There was a lot of profit to be made by the Western world. So I would assume that, do not quote me on anything, I'm saying this is just a discussion, all NATO forces couldn't just invade Libya in the pretense that we are coming here to take to kill Gaddafi, because people would ask, why exactly are you killing Gaddafi? His president. You can't just kill a person without reason, you know what I mean? There's no good reason to just kill a person. That's murder. And if you want democracy, there are other ways to ensure democracy: elections, educating the people, etc., and letting the people decide. But killing someone is murder, which is not right. So how else could have NATO taken care of Gaddafi? Ensue and promote a civil war. They gave supplies, food, ammunition, guns to the people who were against Gaddafi's rule, and gave them the ammunition to start a war. Do not quote me on this. After the war ensued, the same NATO forces invaded Libya so as to help the minority that was supposedly being oppressed by Gaddafi. Bear in mind, the minority that they were talking about, or should I say the people and civilians that are being oppressed and slaughtered and killed by Gaddafi, are not the same civilians that they gave guns to go fight Gaddafi. These are just normal people. So they came under the pretense that they're just helping normal people. Next thing you know, the war starts, it's raging, people are dying, both Libyans, whether they be on Gaddafi's side or the people opposing Gaddafi, and even some NATO soldiers as well were dying in this war. And this was their opportune chance. Since it's a time of war, anything can happen in a time of war. Just like Ian Smith said, it's a time of war, crazy things can happen. They bombed and killed all of Gaddafi's family, except for, I believe, 2 brothers who were further enslaved, or should I say imprisoned, after the war. They killed the grandchildren, the children, the nieces, the nephews, wives, grandmothers, mothers, sisters, brothers, everyone. Even though generally their problem that they had stated was with the president, and the president was Gaddafi, they went on and bombed his entire family. That was the main idea, to ensure that none of his legacy would not continue past that war. No one would carry on this legacy to unite Africa and make it a powerhouse within the world, sort of how China is now rising up against the Western world and saying that you were controlling us in the past in terms of market and industry, but now we have raised quite an amount of money that we are now fighting back. They did not want a competitor, and they wanted Africa to stay docile, and hence Gaddafi's death, or should I say Gaddafi's murder, and his entire family. So some people may look at it in the sense that, okay, fine,
clouds approaching.
Gaddafi was doing bad things, oppressing people. He wasn't a good guy. I won't even lie to you and pretend like I liked Gaddafi in any way. He wasn't really a good guy. It's just that I'm more interested in some of the ideals that he wanted to implement for the benefit for Africa to benefit from. That's the interesting part to me. Now people would say that, oh, he was a dictator. You know, sometimes if you look at the situation in Zimbabwe, the president there is also been there for what, 36 years, and the economy long died years ago. and Zimbabwe really was a promising country. It was the breadbasket of Africa. Everyone used to get their food. There used to be a lot of trade and business and marketing. But look at it now. Literally one of the worst countries in the world in terms of economy, because it doesn't even have one anymore. They were like, okay, fine, war helped the people there because you know, they were under oppression and stuff like that. The issue is sometimes war doesn't solve the problem. Even if the hierarchy is corrupt, war sometimes does not solve the issue. You're about to see a classic example of jump mechanic failing in a video game. I try stay away from anything that requires me to do jump mechanic because of things like this. Yeah, jump mechanic.
Quit kidding around.
But anyway, as we were saying, I'm someone who firmly believes that sometimes all-out war doesn't actually solve all the problems, because now if you look at Libya, after the people had been stimulated by NATO forces to finally fight and kill Gaddafi and his government, the country is actually worse. It's at its worst than it's ever been in the past 20 to 30 years. This is the worst Libya has been. Most of the country doesn't even have good supplies of food, water and electricity after the war. It was really bad. It was terrible. So you'd ask yourself then, for the people who decided that war was the only way, have they really benefited from the situation? If your country is now worse than it's ever been, including the time when the said President Gaddafi was the leader, it's even worse than then, tenfold. What have you gained? The only thing that has changed is that fine, the president is dead, his allies are dead, and most of your civilians, families, friends and relatives are dead too. That's the only thing that's changed. I just don't understand such a situation. I haven't experienced war in my life, but I don't know. I believe if I had experienced such a situation, I would have been traumatized, to say the least, because there was a lot of sacrifices made during that war by everyone who took part in it. There was no good or bad person, clearly. Everyone was in the grey and everyone lost. It was really a bad situation that could have been avoided. But anyway, that's my point on how, for example, in this metaphor, I'm using country A, or should I say I'm using the NATO forces as country A, trying to gain some foothold and control in Africa by the means of controlling Libya, which is country B. But they couldn't directly do so. Instead, they stimulated a war to be fought by the opposition, which is the metaphor of country C. Politics in that regard have been going that way for eons and eons, ever since politics began. It's just a smart tactic. You don't get your own hands bloody if you can get someone else's hands bloody for you and you still benefit. There's just no point. So now back to the game. Miller says that the CIA gave this honeybee ballistic missile launcher to the Mujahideen soldiers, and sadly though, for some reason, probably by the Skulls unit, they say that this unit of soldiers that got the honeybee from the CIA has been wiped out. But in that regard, that's a not clear example, but it's clear that the CIA gave them this technology so that they would test it out on the Russian forces, because who's fighting against the Russians currently within this game? And during this time in real life history, it was the Afghanistan soldiers that were fighting this war. But the American soldiers, or say the American government, couldn't directly interfere and start fighting against the Russians unless they wanted to instigate a world war. We have to understand that this was at the time when the Cold War seemed to have been fading. This was now in the end of the 1970s and the beginning of the 1980s into the mid 1980s, when Afghanistan was at war with Russia. So if America directly got involved, for example, within this game, if the CIA directly sent a task unit to go test out the honeybee within Afghanistan, then Russia could have taken this as an act of war and then declared war against the Americas, which wouldn't have been very beneficial, because at the time, this was after the beginning of the Cold War. And the main topic of discussion that I wanted to talk to you about is about nuclear weapons and nuclear deterrence. That's why I believe that the honeybee is more than just a missile launcher. I believe it's a nuclear missile launcher. And if you played Peace Walker, and if you are familiar with the theory of nuclear deterrence, you'd understand some of the words that you, Emmerich, Hot Coldman and Dr. Strangelove were talking about in Peace Walker. Strangelove was trying to create an artificial AI after the mind and heart of the boss, Big Boss's mentor. And the reason why she believed this, besides her own personal love for the boss, she believed that the boss had moral sense and intelligence enough to make decisions that could determine the path of the world. She believed that the boss's rational skills were of that of a sentient being. She thought that the boss could rule the world fairly and justly as a judge would. That's what she believed. That's why Strangelove decided to create Peace Walker in that regard. But then she partnered up with Hot Coldman, a CIA agent, who actually wanted to use Peace Walker as a mobile nuclear launching platform, I would say, because Peace Walker was able to move on land at a very fast pace and relocate any nuclear weapons within itself, which is a very powerful thing to do, because you have to understand that intercontinental ballistic missiles back in those times, especially in the Cuban Missile Crisis, required a whole base to be set up so as to set up the equipment to potentially launch a nuclear or intercontinental ballistic missile. So if this whole base was structured into one platform, and this platform could move from continent to continent over land, that is a very powerful and threatening platform, because it can quickly relocate to counter any threat. Now that was when the whole, well, in real life during the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War, and within the Metal Gear series during the time of Peace Walker, that's when they were talking about the theory of nuclear deterrence at the time. They believed that if there were to be nuclear war, the best way to prevent nuclear war is to show the person willing to annihilate you that you are equally as likely to annihilate them. What I mean to say is, for example, let's just say there's someone you want to fight. Let's just say you want to fight someone to the death. Would you, before, when you're preparing to fight this person, would you eagerly go to this fight if you knew for a fact that this person has an equally likely chance to kill you as well in this fight to the death? Chances are you think about it, because now you're risking your life for their life. So Hot Coldman had said that if they had created this mobile platform Peace Walker with the sentient knowledge of the boss, then it would know what is right and what is wrong. It would know that it would be ready to do something that people aren't prepared to do, and that is to launch a nuclear missile. So it would detect as soon as, at the time it was during the Cold War, so this was pretty much America versus Russia and everyone else under their control. How can I say this? If Russia launched a nuclear strike against America, for example, because Hot Coldman worked for the CIA, then whether for example, it believed that the human psyche or the human mind is not really capable, or should I say would have trouble launching this nuclear weapon, because some people, for example, are willing to die. Because if I were to be the president of a country getting hit by a nuclear missile, would I really want to press that button in retaliation to kill the whole of another country? I don't. For example, there's some people who wouldn't want that blood on their hands. So Hart Coldman could not trust the American government to do so. Instead, he created Peace Walker for that due fact. If anything were to stop the balance between nuclear weapons amongst different countries, Peace Walker would retaliate against anyone with no holds barred. No one was innocent to Peace Walker. If you launch a missile, you will get struck. There will be retaliation. Now that was the theory of nuclear deterrence that Huey had wanted to implement. That's the reason why he started development on the Peace Walker project. He did not want nuclear war, so the best way to stop nuclear war would be to give everyone nuclear weapons. The theory of nuclear deterrence. I don't know. It's a very difficult thing to understand for me personally. I believe there's more to it than just that bland explanation. I don't know. It's quite tricky, but if you were to look into the history of World War, the Second World War, the only person, or should I say the only country to ever actually use nuclear weapons against another country is the United States of America when it bombed Japan at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But if you look at the current state of political affairs, which country is quick to invade and destabilize a political stronghold within any country that has nuclear weapons? It's the United States of America again. They are the only ones to actually destroy part of a country with nuclear weapons. But they are the first ones to come. As soon as you do anything with nuclear power, they're the first ones to step into your country and tell you you're wrong, stop what you're doing. But they're the ones with the most blood on their hands in that regard. They're the ones who actually used the nuclear weapons, but they're the first to blame everyone. So I guess you would ask yourself then, if at the time when Einstein went over and crossed over towards the Americas, if during the same period of time when they had done the Manhattan Project and actually created their first nuclear bomb, if Japan had also achieved the same goal at the time and they weren't going through such political problems and the war and lack of resources, if they too had created a nuclear bomb and both parties, both America and Japan, were equally likely to launch a nuclear bomb at each other, and they both had aircrafts, because at the time they either had aircraft, submarines, or intercontinental ballistic land missile launchers, if they're both equally likely to do so, would that bomb have dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? That is nuclear deterrence.
You look well rested, big boss. My, how you've changed. You became a demon for such little weapons as that? Well, I'm sure you'll see the bigger picture eventually. If you get out of here alive. Rest in peace this time. I'll see you in hell, boss.
And I decided not to use the honeybee this time because you get a little bonus if you don't fire, if it comes with all its ammunition. As Miller said, that you were actually sent here to recover the weapon and the missiles used within it. Don't know, I guess it's a small GPM bonus. I would have to see when this actually ends. But pretty much all you have to do is survive and run away from these guys. As soon as you exit the mist, they stop chasing you. Quite interesting.
The mist is cleared, and it looks like they're gone. Then bring the target back.
I'd like to know how exactly the mist interacts with the Skulls unit. I still don't know how so, since I stopped playing the game to actually start it again to make all these recordings. I actually made it to halfway, I believe, of the game. I guess the game has I believe I was told 33 main missions, and then there are more missions after those 33 to get the supposed true ending. So let's just say if the game has 40 to 50 missions and I got to about mission 23, that's why I about stopped before I started making this. I decided not to do the side quests because I believe I'll only do the ones that have any significant story part into them, which are a few. And the rest really aren't worth doing, in the sense that I won't have time to do them. Probably when I finish the game and I've finished the let's play on the channel, and I've finished every other game that I'm let's playing, let's just say I have some free time, I'll surely update and upload a few FOBs, Metal Gear Online, and maybe a few side ops. But generally they're not really, I believe they're not worth uploading. It just takes too much time to do a mission that has no story significance. Well, at least I believe not as much of an impact. And I guess you can do them yourself if you're playing the game, really. I mean, besides that, thanks for listening to my rambling about nuclear deterrence and nuclear weapons and politics and seeding and inception. Besides that, thanks for everything. I will see you soon. Let me stop this now before I actually run out of hard drive space.
So this unit in the mist, their speed, the way they jump, It's not human. And those deformities.
They attacked the Soviets, too.
And that Grim Reaper look-alike in charge of them. That giant thing that carried him off. What the hell are they?
Cypher.
Well, what do they want? What's their objective? Why Afghanistan? There's one more thing troubling me.
What happened to the Hamid?
Exactly. Whole squads of hardened Mujahideen killed without a fight, and no trace of BC weaponry. What does it all mean?
That's what we're here to find out.
Yeah, right. If we really need to know, the truth will reveal itself. Even if it's ugly.